Hi, it's Adam Peacock here. Big episode of Willow Talk coming your way here on YouTube. We're going to talk about the Australian T20 series coming up against New Zealand. We'll talk about the Australian women's massive win over South Africa. And talking of massive, India's win and perhaps death, you never know, of Bazball in India. Here it is, Willow Talk. Hello and welcome to Willow Talk for another week. Adam Peacock here with Brad Haddin and Ben Horne from the Daily Telegraph and the News Corp papers around the country. How are we, gents?
I'm outstanding.
Yes.
England have lost, but morally won the game. That 434 run defeat at the hands of India, but they played the better cricket.
Yeah, we're not celebrating or anything, Ben, but can you pass me that bottle of Dom Perignon, please?
Already drunk mine.
Extraordinary, Ben.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, this seems to be the point where now a debate is raging in England about whether this has gone too far, and Joe Root's dismissal probably being at the centre of it. But yeah, it's funny sort of sitting back and watching it all unfold.
Yeah.
You know what was funnier though, Ben? Ashwin, he had to leave the Test match for personal reasons, and I hope Ashwin's everything's all right at home. You hate to hear those words in any press conference, players leaving for that. But England, who own the spirit of cricket and the way they want to play under Ben Stokes, didn't allow him to have another player. I know it's in the rules not to, but this England team's changing everything. So I don't understand why they wouldn't have given them another player.
Would have been a nice gesture.
Would have been a beautiful gesture.
It's fair to say later in the show we're going to discuss this Test match and the ramifications. The joy that is emanating around this particular room where we're doing this podcast is extraordinary. But we will have a look back at that thumping win for India in the third Test. We'll look ahead to Wednesday's opening T20 international between Australia and New Zealand. We're going to recap Australia's big win in the women's Test in Perth. We will have to discuss a certain dismissal on a certain score for a certain co-host of this particular podcast, but she's
Benny,
not
what
here.
have you done?
And we're going to finish with a look at domestic cricket around the country, another Shield round happening at the moment. You've got the Marsh Cup final coming up this weekend as well. As always, a big thanks to those who have left us a review on Spotify and Apple. 286 ratings on Spotify. We're all about numbers here at Willow Talk. Our target is 300 by the end of summer, which is when the clocks go back. Pretty much. Apple, we're 13 short of 100 ratings. Hope this is not going to be a crap show then. We're on 87. So, yeah, we'll see how we go. A few ratings, a few comments here. Running Brody says, keep it up. Listening to the cricket yarns is fast becoming one of the highlights of my week as a father of a budding keeper. The insights of Hads and Heels is excellent. Great cricket stories and excellent insight. Thanks for making it. No worries, Running Brody. And Brody it is. Sorry, Brody. Any tips off the top of your head? Another one here for after the nice comments?
Well, as the father of a keeper, his son or daughter must be a good person.
Oh, there you go. He's raised a good person. He might be a good person as well, or she as well. Ali Road 7 left a lovely review. We heard from Alistair last week. In a nutshell, he said, by far the best cricket podcast going around. And Shells a Bell says, love the pod. Can't believe how many predictions don't come true. But I still have faith. Keep entertaining, lads, and Heels and Ben today as well. We wanted to go back over remember we did our summer predictions? What was going to be the headlines?
I think what I said.
Well, we basically scrapped it because none of them were any good. I wanted to review what we previewed, and they were that far off the mark it wasn't worth doing. So anyway, what we will do is have a little look at the T20 series. Begins on Wednesday. Very relevant because of a T20 World Cup this year for the men. Another injury to Marcus Stoinis. It keeps on happening to him, and I can think of in the last 12 months, it was longer with Jai Richardson, but Jai Richardson and Marcus Stoinis out more than they're in, unfortunately.
And it's a bad time for him to get an injury because there's a lot of good players vying for 15 spots in this World Cup squad. Spencer Johnson's come in for him. There's one.
Can I just stop you right there, by the way? Spencer Johnson, mild thing. You coined it.
No, it's actually Crash Craddock.
Crash came up with it, and you just hopped on. Because
Yeah,
I read your analysis as well, and I went mild thing. And that was the first place I read it. I didn't read Crash's initial I'd call it a broadside towards Spencer Johnson. But has he any communication between you and said?
Yeah,
said
I don't
person?
know. I mean, I know Crash loves it. He's very happy with that nickname. But I don't know how Spencer's taken it. But
Mild thing.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly more about his personality than his bowling, because that's not mild. He's been the highlight of the summer almost for mine, Spencer. But yeah, I mean, I was stunned that he wasn't in the original squad. So it's good that he's made it there, however he's made it there. And it's going to be a really interesting 3-match series in New Zealand, because it looks like they've taken their full strength team there. But, there's lots of players that are knocking on the door. So, a couple of players, probably primarily Steve Smith, with a lot to play for.
Well, you had Stoinis when you did your at 11 at the moment here. You had him on in there you thought about it. But does these continuing body issues maybe put him down the pecking order a little bit, Marcus Stoinis?
Well, I think the one thing Marcus Stoinis needs to be a consistent player in this Australian team is his bowling. That's the one thing he's done really well over the last few series. He's come in and bowled at important times. He's quite valuable with the ball, actually. You can use him up front if you've got swinging conditions, but they do rely on him a lot at the back end of the game to bowl tough overs. So, yeah, it's an uncomfortable time to get injured. Never a great time, but to bring Spencer Johnson in, I wouldn't be making way in any team for him to come in, because the more exposure he gets at international cricket, the better he's getting. So I wouldn't be wanting to walk away and give him a chance.
Matty Wade will miss the first match for the birth of his third child. When did at the start of your career, were blokes missing games for the birth of children, or did it kind of change at the start of your career?
No, I couldn't remember guys really missing. I tell you, Nathan Lyon, I think it was his second daughter. He was in the UAE at the time, and he watched the birth on the Skype screen.
Wow. Okay.
I remember having a conversation with him, actually, and he's thinking, I've got to go home for the birth, and you're all for it. You don't want to miss those moments in life, but he goes, I think my test career is on the line here. Like, it was a really interesting time for him. So he made the tough decision to stay and look where he is now. But yeah, it happens a lot more now. I remember I was lucky that, I don't know, my wife was so lucky, but my first two kids, yes, we had Zach and Mia, but had Zach, got Karina home, said good luck and see you in 3.5 months. So I don't know whether it's better to be there or just walk out the door. So that happened twice. We had a tour of India. So I just walked out.
So yeah, that's fantastic. Partnership you've got going there at home, Hads. It's still going strong, obviously. She's a wonderful woman. Far out. But you've just hopped on a plane for 12 hours in business class sipping champagne while she's got screaming children everywhere.
Oh, no, it's tough work, business class. Having to sit up and sit through the birth and things like that, then get them home. I fell asleep.
You're an idiot. You're an idiot. What do you make of how they approach this, though, Ben? Do they go in all matches, let's pick our best, or do they fiddle around and try some things still ahead of this T20 World Cup?
I mean, look, I think they will fiddle around a bit, particularly because they're managing players, I guess, with test series to follow and different things like that. But, in certain positions, I think they really need to find out who's the man there. Like, as I said, Steve Smith opening the batting. Is he going to open the batting for Australia at the World Cup, or is he not? That's a decision they need to make during this series. So I think that, to me, that's the standout position. I don't know what you think, Hads. That's the one, to me, that is really undecided, who is David Warner's opening partner. The rest of the team sort of takes care of itself, really. And getting back to Stoinis, I guess one thing that's helped him is his original replacement, Aaron Hardy, who would have been a threat to his place in the World Cup, is also out injured now as well. So I think, Stoinis will still have a chance. He was their best player at the last T20 World Cup, which was, not saying a lot because Australia were terrible. But he does have a good record at these T20 World Cups, and it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
I've got Inglis and Travis Head ahead of Steve Smith to open the batting. Maybe Smith in the middle order somewhere if you want someone to balance things. I don't know if you need that in a T20, Hads, but would you have it that way, or you got Steve Smith higher up the pecking order?
Well, I think the top four's already decided. I think Warner's going to open with Head, Marsh at 3 and Glenn Maxwell at 4. Okay. The interesting one now is Matthew Wade. I think he's been outstanding at number 6 and 7 in this 2020 format. We seen when they won in the UAE. A lot of that was off the back of him scoring runs under pressure, the way he controls the game. The other thing he's very helpful with is Mitch Marsh is still a young captain. And Matthew Wade has captained a lot of teams. He's quite a cool head under pressure now. So you sort of need that balance in the team at the moment with Marsh just trying to find his feet. That'll change over time, and I think then Inglis will come in. But Josh Inglis gets his opportunity now with no Matthew Wade. Does he go and fit into that role at 6 and 7? Because I think the top four is decided. Steve Smith, I would take in the squad to the World Cup because, one, he can cover all positions in the batting order. And you talk about, yes, 200 runs win you games. That's a beautiful game of 2020, but it might be 150 on some of those wickets over there in the Caribbean. So Steve Smith then becomes a really important player in the middle.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about how you'd expect a T20 World Cup in the West Indies to play, because it was the ongoing conversation through the last T20 World Cup in Australia with Steve Smith not in the 11. And I'm not saying he would have made a huge difference to Australia's performance, but it didn't help that Australia crashed out of the tournament without Steve Smith even playing a game. So they need to be really clear on what their plan is there, because when you leave someone like Steve Smith out, there's pressure on everyone else.
Mitch Marsh, is he locked in as captain? Is that the kind of word behind the scenes?
Yeah, I would have thought the fact he's captaining this series with Pat Cummins in the team would say that he's locked in. Yeah.
He's a lock. And that for you is a positive, how Mitch has handled the C next to his name so far?
Yeah, I like it. I think I like the development. We need to start developing different leaders. We've seen David Warner leave out of two forms of the game. Steve Smith, now he's getting older, still a great leader, but we need to start developing leaders. And Mitch Marsh, the good thing about him at the moment is at the top of his game. So his spot's not under question. So it's always good to give leadership opportunities with those guys when they're at the top of their game, but also have a few senior players around them. So I'd expect Steve Smith to be somewhere in that squad. Josh Inglis will go as a spare batter as well. So you cover top order and middle order there as well. So, Matthew Wade will come back in.
And now a programming note for this week. Usually when you wake up on a Thursday morning, bang, Willow Talk is there for you. It's going to be a little later on Thursday because we want to react to the Wednesday night match in this T20 series. So that's why it's going to be a little later. And the Kiwis, well, they're cock-a-hoop. They've real surprise Test series win over South Africa, J. It's not South Africa A or B, or that we went all the way down there with the calibre of players. Realistically, guys, I'm really uncomfortable with the fact that your test averages and all those things, because cricket is a numbers game, and we judge players with the numbers next to them. But seriously, this series, does it? I mean, the result might come as an asterisk, but is it as satisfying? Put us in a Kiwi position. Is it as satisfying from a Kiwi cricket position to just put up these numbers and wipe the floor with their opponents?
No, although I think they're probably more relieved than satisfied because they got out of jail in the second test. Yeah. But yeah, look, I hope that this series is a real line in the sand for the ICC and whoever's running the game, because something needs to be done to protect these teams like South Africa in particular, but New Zealand, West Indies, Sri Lanka, all these sides, because we can't have Test cricket just being a three-team competition. If it's Australia, England and India and no one else, it's going to affect Test cricket, obviously, in the long term. So I really think that the game needs to get together this year and work out a way of financially making it viable for these other teams to invest in cricket, in Test cricket, and I'm not saying it's an easy solution, but to make sure that you don't have these situations arising. Even if there's less Test cricket, make sure it's good Test cricket if it's being played.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Benny, but with the ICC, something's got to happen. We haven't got the answers yet, but is one of the answers, can we put a block in the calendar for just Test cricket? Like then the ICC might be able to pay some money for the top 15 West Indian contracted players to make it attractive at that time. So if there's no cricket on at that time, all of a sudden we're prioritising Test cricket all around the world. There may be two divisions. I don't know the answer, but is there an opportunity to get a window? So in that period, the West Indies aren't in any other leagues around the world. They're all available to play. And then maybe then we can start getting the other countries up to speed with Test cricket.
So I had a close look at this about how you might be able to do it. Now, big problem for cricket is the fact that it's played in both hemispheres.
Yep.
So you've got strong teams in both hemispheres. So essentially, you've got to split. If you're going to do it that way, you've got to split the calendar into 4, not 2. So you've got the Northern Hemisphere summer and the Southern Hemisphere summer, but they all want to play. Like England, you can only play cricket really, international cricket. You'd only want to play international cricket over there for 3 months of the year, because otherwise weather becomes too big a factor. Maybe you can get away with it late May, but June, July, August, and I know we've played Ashes series into September, but the big issue is around that they want, like here at the Big Bash, we want to play our Test cricket during the day and then have the Big Bash on at night, because that's when all eyeballs are on, we're all off, and we're all eating prawns and leftover ham and all of that. It's the same in England with the 100 and their white ball cricket with concurrently the Test series going on. So I don't know how they do it, but maybe there's white ball international windows that you're quarantining those so they're not weakened heavily. So you're not crossing over like we saw with the Windies with the T20s and the one-dayers. Their best players are not off in Abu Dhabi or wherever they were playing in Dubai. But I don't know how you cross it over with Test cricket because you're so limited with seasonal factors.
Well, I mean, specifically with South Africa, I mean, obviously they cannot be allowed to play Test cricket while their franchise league's going on, because
can't happen.
The entire contract with the TV networks is that every single top player needs to be playing the franchise league. So why schedule them a Test series in New Zealand?
And didn't they go to New Zealand and say, hey, this is happening? Can we maybe just work it around? And the Kiwi said, well, no, because we've got Australia coming here right after, and it's our slot to have. But I mean, if I'm the TV broadcaster in New Zealand of that cricket, my head's blown off.
Yeah.
I'm just losing it at the fact that we're playing this and it's just such a watered down concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the other thing with that, yes, it was a watered down concept, and South Africa come out and said that it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And let's hope in the future they've made the mistake and they move on. But the flip side to that as well, if South Africa don't run that 2020 competition, they're once again out of international cricket. So they were broke.
Look at the money. Yeah,
they were done. So what saved them is that the Indian backers came in, their international players, as you said, there was contracted they had to play. And that was the only way they could get money back into South African cricket. Because if that doesn't happen, all of a sudden you've got your school cricket, your grassroots cricket, that's non-existent. And once again, we lose South African cricket.
Well, that's what Graham Smith said.
I know
about the fact that they have to run this competition because it's our lifeblood now.
That's right, yeah. And I heard Harsha Bhogle talking during the summer about what his solution would be. And basically it was that these countries do need to be fed more money from India and from the ICC. But it can't just be a handout of cash, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Can't be from admin to admin.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So
not.
it has to almost be a compensation almost after the event for hosting a test match, because it does cost money for these countries to put tests on. They do it at a loss. So the way of funneling the money to them has to be in such a way that you know where it's going, and it's guaranteeing that the test match is going to be played.
I think they can. The ICC can take a lot through how FIFA do things with big competitions through FIFA. There's a lot of compensation that goes on, especially if players injured themselves. Basically, if you blow a knee out at a World Cup, the club gets that player paid for that year, however long he or she is out for. There's a lot of compensation in terms of funding from those directly from those tournaments, and then there's ongoing funding separate to that as well through the year. But my idea, Hads, is that for the Tier 1B nations, I call them, so your South Africas, your Sri Lanka, your West Indies, who are established test nations, that there is a little cut taken from the central pool that the ICC get from their events, which they put on really well, and credit to the ICC. Under 19, we big that up about how well they do to put that on as well. Great development competition. But they take a slice out of their central pot to say, look, we're going to give the 15 best West Indian test cricketers $500,000 each on top of what they're getting from their thing, just to kind of incentivize that test factor. Well, it's an impossible thing to clearly work out because there's so many factors at play here, but that's one idea.
Yeah, there isn't. It's impossible actually to get the right answer. But the other thing, okay, you're talking about West Indies now. They're red hot on our minds. They've just come out here, had a great win against us in the Test series. But it might not be giving the money to the 15 Test players. It might be saying, okay, we need to actually give some money to the grassroots and structure of West Indies cricket. They've got all different countries competing to get international cricket. So it mightn't be you give the money to them. It might be, yes, we'll take the money, but we choose, and the ICC then might have to look over this, say, okay, this generation we might have missed. We might need to start rebuilding West Indies cricket from the ground up and give the money to grassroots. And then it's not like a 1, 2 or 3 year plan. It might be a 5-year plan, and then to make them successful again.
But is that not just producing more players for the T20 leagues in the end, when it comes down to it, and not protecting that Test cricket?
Well, that the one thing at the moment, the reason that they go, the West Indies players, is the West Indies Cricket Board have to let them go because they can't afford to pay them.
Yeah.
So if you build from the ground up, you pay these players right to come through, you get your infrastructure there right, then maybe, as I said, I haven't got the answer, but do we have to start looking at it differently? Okay, here's 15 players, we're going to give you $500,000 to play. It might be, okay, this is a 6-year plan. We've got to create some infrastructure here. We've got to get the players coming through, loving Test cricket, making that more attractive, and then maybe that's when they start to build.
Because we look at it now and we think, oh, well, it's saturated. It's totally saturated the T20 leagues around the world. No, it's not. There'll be more. There'll be more that pop up. I mean, it's only like even America's having a crack at it with the MLC, and that's only going to grow, you would think. What's to say that the time-honoured European Cricket League doesn't take off and everyone wants to go there and play on the rollout mats that they play in Barcelona and things like
Romania.
We'll go.
I'll go.
Can we do a show from there, Sam?
I'll happily go. So apparently the Windies lost $2 million sending men's and women's teams out this summer. So the board's copying it as well. They're leaking money, and that's money that probably can't get spent on their red ball domestic league that they play, and then their white ball, their T20 league, Caribbean Premier League. Goes all right, but
yeah. Sadly, I mean, it's definitely heading in a direction, I guess, like international soccer, where the leagues around the world take precedence, and then international matches fit in and around that. And I think it's almost getting to the point where cricket needs to just bite the bullet and accept that that's going to happen. And maybe that's a way then to start, as you were saying, carving out specific spots in the calendar where there can't be any franchise cricket on. But
they've got to do it, otherwise it's going to get like football, where it's tiny little windows for international stuff, and the calendar is, say you got, if you give it 100% for the whole calendar, I would say 85% of it is for club football. Imagine if that happened in cricket. You've got 15% of the time for international cricket.
In a sport that takes weeks to play, that's the thing. You can't just go and play a quick match and come home.
Horrific. Yeah. Anyway, there was a quick match over at the WACA last week. Australia absolutely gave it to South Africa in the women's test by an innings and 284 runs. I sat down to watch day one and I went, oh, okay, Australia batted first and they're going okay. Oh, wait, look down the bottom. 76, South Africa. Thanks very much. So bowled so well, got it right with the bat. Australia, dominant performance. Good to see from Australia's women who, were pushed up against it in some of the white ball stuff in that series.
Well, I'll tell you what happened there in that test matches, which was a really brave call, was from Hadlee. She sent the opposition in
at the WACA
in 40 degrees heat. So they had to bowl them out. She put a lot of pressure on the bowlers. They came up. They were outstanding with the ball. The South African women just didn't handle the bounce. We hit the right areas. I think it was Brown was outstanding with the ball to start with. But the one thing about it, after they lost that one-day game, that one-day game, and South Africa came out and said, oh, then the aura's gone. Oh, do you reckon you'll take that back?
Yeah.
Since then, it sort of clicked the switch in this Australian team, and all of a sudden we some unbelievable performances. But Hadlee 99, Sutherland 200, Brown 5 for 21 on day one. But don't poke the beast.
Yeah,
they've been the most outstanding sporting team across the globe for the best part of 15 years. Do not poke the beast, and that's a lesson learnt by South Africa.
What about James Sutherland? His time in charge of Cricket Australia it's still bearing fruit, because he's obviously had a clear idea about the development pathways for both Will and Annabelle. So Annabelle 210 not out, and poor old Will, who's going okay, is clearly the second best player in his family at the moment. So just an extraordinary performance. And when you mentioned to some of the women's players, Ben, about Annabelle Sutherland, they kind of go into a bit of a hushed tone about, oh my goodness, she's so good, and she's only going to get better. If she's only going to get better from this, it's mind-blowing what she could be.
Yeah, well, it's kind of Elise Perry-like, dare I say, isn't it? Being able to bat 5 in the Test team and essentially be a strike bowler as well. Yeah, unbelievable. And just that sort of ability to play big innings, that's her, she made 100 batting at 7 or 8 in her first Test in England last year, and now another double 100 in a Test match. So, to just jump into the Test match format like that and dominate, incredible effort. But, I mean, she wasn't that far away from challenging for the Belinda Clark medal, and the way she started this year, early favourite.
She's half a chance of winning one at some point in her career, I would have thought.
She's 22.
Yeah. Phoebe Litchfield is 21. Darcy Brown is 21, or nearly 21. Sorry, Phoebe's 21 shortly. Ash Gardner, Soph Molyneux, only 26. So you're wondering, okay, you got some elder stateswomen of the game still playing, obviously, like El Capitan, or La Capitana, it is actually, the female version of that. But, the regeneration is just happening before our eyes and happening pretty successfully, Hats.
Well, and that's the exciting thing for a captain. Healy, very experienced on the world stage, and to be able to massage his team the way she wants. The legacy that she's going to leave now, 2 years at most, maybe she's going to play for, maybe a little bit longer, but to be able to massage these young girls into the style they want, teams are coming after them now, and mate, I just think it's an exciting time. They're so young. But the one thing about the series is the multi-format series. Like, they've got a craving to play more Test cricket. Are the other nations up to that? Can they compete with Australia? Or is it still the best entertainment value to play white ball series against other countries? So I know the appetite's to play more Test cricket, but are the other countries up to it outside of the same conversations we have with the men, with England and India?
We've got to mention it, Elisa. If you're listening, sorry, the 99. Only 12 players in Test history have a 99 as their highest score, and 2 of them are married. But the shot Hads. We were talking about what's the prettiest shot. Oh, it was one of the ones you missed actually. What's the prettiest shot? I felt like she got stuck between 2 pretty shots and trying to play an on-drive push and then a flick off the pads, and then somehow it ended up going to the offside just of the bowler and out. What a stinker, unfortunately.
Oh, it would have been good to have one up on your husband. That's what I would have been thinking.
He might have been relieved watching it home.
He was commentating, actually, wasn't he? Starkey was on, but she played outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm always into her. I'd love to see her opening in the Test match.
Yeah.
I think she's set up for that game to drive the game.
It is the message that you send the most on this group chat of ours. Every game that Australia plays, Hads is, are you opening? Are you opening? Like a dad or something like that. You wanted to dominate from the top.
I just like the way they moved the game forward. But
yeah.
There was only one person after. Sorry, I think I would have been the second most disappointed person. Alyssa getting out on 99 because I had my story all ready to go. It's about 10 o'clock at night, right on the deadline. Play's about to finish. It's all taken care of. Had to rewrite the whole thing.
Flick one down the pitch.
Yeah.
We did make a point, though, that only absolute icons of Australian cricket make 99 at the Wacker. And SK Warne is one of those as well.
As a no ball.
Exactly. Next up, the Women's Premier League starts on the weekend. We're going to take a little breather and come back and talk about England.
Can't wait.
Okay, if you're an England cricket fan, just hit skip forward about 20 times. You know, the little +10 button that you can have on podcasts when the ads come up or whatever like that. No, of course, listen to the ads. They're wonderful supporters of us here at Willow Talk. But, I'm not sure you want to listen to this if you're an England cricket fan, or maybe it's going to help you get over what just happened. It was labelled in places like the Times as Bazball's worst ever day. India win the third test by 334 runs, nearly that many, to go 2-1 up. A statement for both sides. A statement of intent and brilliance from India, and a statement of what the hell was that from England. Can you guys sum it up?
Well, this will be the biggest test of sticking with the style, which they've done very well. And even when there's been slip-ups before, they've sort of shrugged it off and just, no, we're keeping this style. But this will be the biggest test of that because there's been a lot of blowback from home. And, I mean, the bizarre thing to me is that they've sort of done the hard part by embracing this new style of cricket, which I think we can all agree has been fantastic for the game and has changed the game. And it's been great, but their inability then to make adjustments, it's almost like this kind of arrogance of not being able to kind of accept that maybe some parts of it need to be fine-tuned. That's the part that I can't understand. And for Joe Root to think that he needs to be playing that sort of shot when he averages 50 in Test cricket long before Bazball was invented. It's to me it's bizarre because they've done the hard part in inventing this style, but they can't find that second and third gear. It always has to be fourth and fifth.
Now, Hads, you've been not a critic of Bazball. You're just confused about it. Are you even more confused now? You've got a bit of clarity about it's maybe verging on a bit of BS.
I think the confusion lies with their players. I think they've got caught up into what they think Bazball's like. I heard Ben Duckett, who got actually an unbelievable 150, a runnable 100, then came out after that and said, we'll change the way that the game's played. The reason, who got the double 100? Jaiswal. Jaiswal got the double 100. He's got a couple of hundreds this series. The reason he's done so well is because of us. Come on.
Like they've invented quick scoring.
Yeah, it's like it's never happened before. And the one thing, I like what they're doing with Test cricket. I like the style of game. I like what Brendan McCullum's brought to the change room. But it's those little comments like, we're going to chase 600 down no matter what happens, you get bowled out for 100. It's the accountability piece around what's coming out of some of their players' mouths. So, like David Warner, Gilchrist, Seawag, they weren't entertainers of the game. It's nothing new what they're doing. All Brendan McCullum's done really well is freed their players up to play a game style that suits the athlete. Like for you to play a certain way to Ben, is to give them the confidence to play they want. But at the moment, under pressure, that's not working for some of the players. And Joe Root's a perfect example of that.
Just about to say, which brings us to Joe Root and the shot he played in this Test match and some of the shots and some of the ways he's getting out and basically his return is nowhere near what we know Joe Root can provide this cricket team. So has this intent stuffed him up?
Well, I don't think it stuffed him up. The thing, I'm looking at Joe Root, he did that reverse sweep or lap to Paddy Cummins a couple of times. And I remember sitting back at home and going, wow, that's a great shot. Everyone's smiling. Paddy's smiling. Joe Root's going. My point is, he doesn't need to. He's better than that. Joe Root. He's one of a generational players. So he's trying to get maximum result there of really, really high risk. Number 10 and 11 do that to try to get the game moving forward. Joe Root doesn't have to do that. He can beat them with class. And I think he maybe has got caught up in this Bazball style where he doesn't need to. He can be a batter that plays you on class, uses the crease deep. So I think he's a bit confused.
I wanted to run two theories by your Hads with Joe Root. Number one, it's complete selflessness, as in he's just buying into Bazball. Yep. You know, I don't care that I averaged 50 in Test cricket beforehand. I'm happy for my numbers to be hurt because I'm going all in for the team. If we're doing this, I want to be part of the team. That's theory number one. Theory number two, he was the captain before Ben Stokes and had a really tough time of it. Difficult time for English cricket. He got criticised a lot. Now Stokes has taken over and is a hero. Is there some element in Joe Root going, all right, you want to play this way? Okay, all right, we'll do it. And he's just almost slightly cynically just going, okay, you want me with my record to do this? All right, I'll do it. And I don't know. What do you reckon?
Well, I reckon it's a good point because the first point you make is he's buying into everything. He's buying, okay, I'll play that way. I'd lost 16 and won his captaincy record before I think Stokes took over. So yes, he is doing the team thing. But the thing about the best thing for the team is for Joe Root to bat long periods of time. And it's not all like Ben Stokes doesn't score at 120 strike rate. He gets time to get in, and once he gets in, he's the one player that does have different gears. The guys like Duckett at the top and Crawley, they got one pace. And the thing about what McCullum's done well with them is they're not good enough yet to go different gears. Joe Root is. So I just think he needs to sit back and say, okay, yes, I'm all in with this, but the best way I can contribute to the team is to score big hundreds. And at the moment, he's probably not getting the runs that we expect from Joe Root.
Well, he didn't get the runs that we were fearful of in the Ashes. In this series, he's averaging 12.83. Now, overall, the numbers on Bazball pre and post, Joe Root's average has gone up by nearly 1 run from 49 to 50 pre and post Bazball. The much faster strike rate, 54 to 73, has a better 50 to 100 conversion rate. But the point is, I think the point you're trying to make is, Hads, he can sing like Adele, but he's trying to sing like James Hetfield. What's the point? Just sing like Adele. And, yeah, you can do it maybe, but, like, you made your name doing it a certain way. Just keep doing that because you're one of the best to ever play the game that way.
Well, the one thing Joe Root has in his favour, Joe Root is one of the players that can play at different gears. So he's smart enough to say, okay, there's a Bazball component now. I've got to take the game on, and we need to drive the game a bit here because we want more time to bowl the opposition out. So, okay, then play that style. But there's also that time where you go, okay, I've got to take 2 steps back. I've got to get through this situation. I can still hit 4s and take the spinners on down the ground, but I'm going to take that really, really high-risk, low-percentage shot out of my game till I really need it to go forward. So I just think he's selling himself short. I just think he's a much better player than what we're seeing at the moment.
It'll be a remarkable turnaround if they come back, and I'm not putting it past them because they've got so many match winners in their lineup, England, and maybe they might get a couple of DRS verdicts go their way. Ben Stokes wants the umpire's call gone after a few, I'd call them shaky ones in this Test match. Is that ever going to happen?
Well, I mean, he's certainly not the only one who thinks
you
that.
Had it.
And
no, I'm with Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
picked that quote out, producer Sam. Brad Haddin, I'm with Ben Stokes. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well, I agree too. I mean, we saw one in the summer where I think it was Travis Head, and he went on to make 100. It was probably the difference in the first Test. And it was just, he survived on umpire's call. And it is just a confusing thing to basically have this kind of twilight zone where, you're out, but you're actually not out sort of thing. I mean, it's just confusing, and I think it would simplify it for everyone if they just backed in the technology. You either want to use it or you don't.
If you hit the stumps, you hit the stumps.
Yeah.
If you don't
You're
hit
out.
the stumps, you're not out.
Well,
so.
It makes the job a lot easier. And there's so much pressure on the umpires with all the cameras available. It takes so much pressure off them as well.
And because it affects their umpiring, doesn't it? Because if they're looking at something's marginal, they've got things in their minds like how many reviews and things like that. And it does. I reckon it does impact
100%.
on their decision making.
It is getting better, that technology. I saw a later version of it, and maybe the ICC and things like this are using it, but at the tennis recently, because they now just got rid of lines judges totally.
Amazing.
And their technology's got so much better and it's improving all the time. There's one of the tournaments in Japan, they've actually got this super, super, super slow-mo where you can actually see the compression of the ball when it's hitting the court. So you've got all this technology improving. I think as it improves, like you say, surely you can pick to the half millimetre where that ball is going to track and hit.
I never thought I'd get this forum, but just on the tennis, like when I was watching that, do you think it's taken something away from the game that you don't have players losing their, at umpires?
Definitely.
Like, I mean, to me, that was just a huge part of the theatre of the game.
Absolutely.
I think it's sad that it's gone in a way just for that reason.
The funniest is when you see the player want to blow up and then realise, I've got no one to blow up to here. I'll just pick out the usual punching bag, the ones in my own player's box. So anyway, just a real quick one. I saw on the High Performance podcast, Stuart Broad was quoted as saying about how positive they have to be with their language, especially to start the day, England, around Brendan McCullum and everything. He wants this radiance of positivity always around the squad. Like even if you're feeling like crap when you wake up, which I'd imagine Hads you can do after a long day, and then you get up the next day and you just feel like absolute garbage, you have to find something positive in your language. Like, I just had the best coffee, guys. It was so good. So everyone is emanating this just rays of light at the start of the day. You have to be positive. That's what no negative talk because it brings the whole room down. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting you say that because some people, that's just not natural. Some people take a bit longer to get going. And Stuart Broad actually spoke a lot of common sense there. This is twice. Hang on a minute. Starting to get dizzy. Well,
Can we get a medic?
he actually, oh gosh, I'm lost for words. But he actually said at the start he struggled with it. There'd be times he'd bowl 30 overs in the day. Takes a while to get going, and you got to be positive. And he said, "Oh gosh, what am I going to say? Oh, this coffee this morning is really, really nice." Just like it's a bit like Joe Root's batting, saying, "Okay, no, I'll buy into it. I'll buy into what you're doing." And I'm wholehearted in. So to me, that's a bit fake. And it's a bit the same as Joe Root's batting. It's so, yes, you want to be positive, but there's also times in that just to say, just give me a moment. But yeah.
Isn't it easy to say if you are feeling like crap, just don't say anything, as opposed to trying to basically lie to yourself that everything or something is great. If you're feeling like crap, just keep it within.
The one part of Bazball that I really don't like is what you were raising before. And obviously, maybe when you're in that mindset of trying to be so positive, they just can't break themselves out of it. So it's all part of the act. But I don't like the arrogance of it when they're making public comments.
Yep.
And it's sort of just this air of, we have reinvented the wheel. Aren't we so fantastic? Whereas, just a bit of humility, a bit of modesty, because they have got the compliments they deserve. They've played amazing cricket. They've changed the game. They've made Test cricket so much better.
They haven't invented the sport.
But we don't need to hear it from them all the time.
Jaiswal, outstanding, as we mentioned, 214. We'll talk about India, by the way. They did win the Test match. Jadeja, who's one of my favourite cricketers because he's he'd be a nightmare to face over there. Did you ever face him over there?
Yeah,
Hans?
not for long.
Yeah. I mean, with the bat, with the ball, pushed up the order because of a variety of reasons, and then he does what you expect with the ball. He just gives you nothing on those kind of pitches. Great cricketer. So, too good.
Against Australia, Jadeja has to be one of the best players of the last 10 years against Australia. Amazing.
Well, what I liked about it, he started at number 8. He batted at 5 in this Test match. India were in trouble. Wood was bowling with some serious gas at the start. Rohit Sharma played well as well, but he needed support. So they put him up to 5. He played outstanding. He played a different role to what we've seen in the past. He played a bit more batsmanship. He worked through the innings. So, he's going to go down he's definitely a thorn in our side, Australia, but he's the total package, bats, bowls and fields.
I'm not sure Sarfaraz Khan is his biggest fan, though. I don't know if you saw the run out. So Jadeja's on 99, so he's obviously a bit jumpy, which is fair enough. And he just goes, yep. And then he went, no. And then poor old Sarfaraz was halfway down the wicket. He got his stumps thrown down.
It was a shocker. I mean, I'd kept the television on to see Jadeja make his 100 before I went and made dinner or something. It just was not happening. He just did not move in the 90s at all. And
late dinner.
It was a shame. Yeah.
Well, the hard thing also, there's been a lot spoken about Khan getting his Indian debut.
Yeah.
He's dominated first-class cricket like no other player over there. He's not the typical modern-day athlete. He gets a lot of runs. And you just had to see his cap presentation. Him and his father were in tears. Yeah. It was so emotional to finally get that moment. He was in control in his first Test. And for that to happen, oh, mate,
it's a classic example of just how strong Indian cricket are.
Yeah.
Like you see that guy play and go, how's this his first game for India?
So and he was trucking along to get a century in the second, and Rajkot said, "No, that's enough, boys. Come in." Declare. I mean,
run out
to do that in your first Test is outstanding. What's the worst ever run out you saw, Hads?
Oh dear. I tell you the funniest one. In the end, it wasn't a run out. You'll remember this, Benny. Sri Lanka SCG. I think it was Senga, inside edge. I've quickly run, got my glove off, and went to throw to the bowler's end. Shane Watson was bowling. And I seen Michael Clark run in from mid-off. So I've got it, stopped my throw, and threw it in front of Michael so he could run into the stumps and run him out. But I had to lob Watto, and he wasn't quite back at the stumps that time, and he didn't see Michael coming in. So I've lobbed Watto. Watto's gone, oh, no, what have you done? Michael's caught it.
Yeah.
And remember, he's loaded up from a metre away from the stump and thrown it as hard as he could at the stumps. It hit Watto just below the knee. You must remember this.
Yeah.
And the noise from where I was like two bits of wood had hit together. Watto didn't flinch. They shared eye contact. Ricky Ponting was about 2 metres away just looking, going, what's just happened here? And Watto's walked back to his mark, got on with it. Michael's sort of standing there just with his hand over his mouth thinking, oh, this is embarrassing. There was no interaction, but the noise on Watto's shin was amazing. It was not out because he didn't hit the stumps. It hit Watto's leg, but the way he handled it.
Because there was always these stories about Shane Watson and Michael Clarke who started playing cricket against each other from a very, very young age of being these great rivals.
Yeah.
And it carried on through.
Yeah.
So if that didn't manifest itself into some kind of aggro, it was obviously a fallacy, that story, because it sounds like that could have kicked off.
Oh, that could have kicked off
like
easily.
each other.
But the interesting, Watto doesn't get enough credit for it. Michael threw it as hard as he could from 2 metres away. He took it. The noise was horrible. He just looked at him, shook his head, and walked back.
What was said after?
Oh, it was one of those moments, where you come into the change room and you just look around, you're thinking, oh, we need a Bollinger or someone here just to bring it up because just to break the ice. It's one of those that normally breaks the ice about 3 cans in when you're in the change room after a win, but it wasn't good.
It was a classic. Watto and Simon Kadich had their fair share.
Yeah.
And there was one, wasn't there, at the MCG where they ended up just running to the same end, and it was almost like a race. They're just stretching their bats out to see who could get across the line first.
Have you ever done anyone in that? You've ended up at the same thing. Oh, I'm there first. Sorry, you got to go. Or you always you're always the ultimate team man. You were happy to.
Mate, it depends on who you're batting with.
Yeah.
Like if you're about to get in a mix-up and you're with number 9 or someone, you think, I'm a better player than you. But then if you look at the other end, you think you got Ponting or Haddin, you think, oh no, I've got to run past them. So I'm the one that was out. So it was when you knew the pecking order really quick, when you each look at each other and said, okay, someone's got to make a decision. And if you're eyeball with Ponting, Haddin, Martin, you think, that's me.
Domestic cricket, guys, at the SCG, Victoria piled it on against New South Wales. As we sit here and record, the match is not quite over. By the time you listen, it probably is over. But 3 former Test players in the Vicks lineup, and Chris Rogers, take a bow, son, because you got some of your cricketers playing their best cricket at the moment. Nick Maddinson, Will Pucovski, Peter Hanscom. Which century stands out for you there? Not to diminish the other 2 that we don't choose, but which one in particular kind of widens your eyes a little?
Oh, look, definitely Will Pucovski's, just from the overall story. I think Nick Maddinson was probably the best to watch, but I think Will Pucovski, that's his first Shield 100 in 3 years. Wow. He's obviously had extended breaks, whether it be for concussion and also mental health. He actually missed the previous Shield game with delayed concussion symptoms from a second 11 game he'd played. So to me, that was a significant innings from Will Pucovski. And, it's a nice way. Sorry, there's still a couple more games to go in the season, but it does put a nice end to what seems to have been a very good season for him. Not with the bat until this point, but just for him, with what he's been through, to be able to get through a whole season. His confidence is up. His belief is up that he can get back and play for Australia again. So, to me, that was a big knock.
Yeah, I like that Will's came back. He's had a lot of adversity this season, whether it's been we're batting at the top of the order with some of the wickets, with concussion or mental health. So there's a lot going on in Will's world. So to be able to get out there and score 100 at number 3, but I like Nick Maddison's.
Okay,
mate. Since he's gone down from New South Wales to Victoria, he's averaged 50 in first class cricket. Hit the second ball of the game for 6. Just popped it in the stand off Jackson Burden. And the way he set up the game, it looked a pretty flat wicket out there. So he set the game up and allowed Will and Peter Hampscombe, the spinning specialist, he loves playing at the SCG, just to bat in their normal tempo. But it was Nick Maddison's 100 and his record for Victoria since he's gone down there.
You got them as favourites for the Shield?
Oh, jeez. So 2 compliments to English players, English legends here. Is there going to be a third? Is there going to be a
thought I'd keep pushing it.
Brad Haddin compliments Victorian cricket comment on this podcast?
No, I can't. I think still New South Wales, I think, can win it. I tell you what I don't like, what they're doing at the moment, actually.
Who?
New South Wales is with their young keeper.
Yeah.
young Jukes. I've seen the last couple of games that they've batted him at 4. They had a lot of time in the dirt at the SCG. Nathan Lyon bowled 50 overs. He's got to keep, and his number one job as a keeper is to take all your chances. And yeah, I've seen Moses batting behind him. You've got Jack Edwards and young Davies batting at 5, 6, and 7, which okay, they're going okay there. But for the development of the game and where you the game style you want to play with New South Wales and to get these guys picked, well, I don't see Ollie Davies pushing his case at number 6 and 7. Get up at number 4. Move your keeper back to 7. It just looks like to me a few of the players are hiding away from taking some responsibility with the newer ball.
Not great for Chris Tremaine, although I'm going to say this drop that, had us all a little surprised when we saw it. The sun was a factor. I'm not sure if that's an excuse.
Okay,
It was an absolute dolly. Okay, it was a dolly. But he did get up and he went, I lost it. Is that an excuse? And
he had sunglasses and his hat on. There's two components to that.
Yeah.
One, watch your fast bowler doing it mid-wicket. I'm old school. He should be down at fine leg. You should have one of your batters there. But yeah, it was a comical one, mate. I tell you the funniest one I've seen.
Yeah, go.
And this was at Hove playing in an Ashes series. I know if you were maybe 2009, Ricky Ponting. So we're playing the tour game there at Sussex, and Punter had hot spots in his hand, so he taped it right up for the tour game. And the balls are sort of like beating him, got high on the splice, gone to Punter at mid-wicket. He's gone to catch it, and the ball's popped out. And it was like you just underarmed to him. And we've all looked, and the first thing everyone did, head straight down. and I can't remember who was at slip. They said, "What's Punter doing?" I said, "I'm not looking," because no one. And he just grabbed the tape, and because I never seen him drop any catches. And no matter if you're in a tour game, you're at training, you're just playing catches in the team room, mate. He caught everything. And he's so competitive. When the ball, first and foremost, we're in shock. Then the shock was, how do we react? Because we can't laugh. Because if we laugh at Punham, we're all in trouble.
So he wouldn't see the funny side of it?
Well, he did eventually.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who broke the, sort of looked at him and there's a chuckle. Then it went all around the field and he's seen the funny side of it later. But you didn't want to be the first one to break. I've never seen one drop that easy. Mark Waugh, actually.
Another one. Mark Waugh.
Mark Waugh, just before his last year of Shield cricket. And Mark Waugh was the same. He was probably arguably the best fielder we've ever seen. At mid-wicket, they've just lobbed a nice little catch to him down. And I knew Mark well enough. I just remember walking past. He goes, "How did I drop that?" I said, "Mate, you've got to retire." So it was, It's the funnier when you see Chris Tremaine's was, yes, it got caught in the light. But it's when you see the true greats of the game, the reaction of everyone else. How do we react here?
I bet. So no one rolled out a nice one, Phil Tufnell or something like that? Or is it?
You've got to pick your mark.
And you've got to be sure of your spot in the team as well.
Mm.
Yeah. If you're new to the team, you're not saying jack shit, are you?
Well, you've got to be careful that the next training session, Ricky doesn't say, "All right, let's come and do some catches and fielding with me." And poof.
Back to the domestic stuff. In Adelaide, Queensland beat South Australia by 7 wickets. Don't know what was going on with that Adelaide Oval deck, but, South Australia, their first innings, there was more ducks than a Chinatown window. It was 3 for none to start the game. Alex Carey came in and steadied things somewhat, and he had a good match with the bat, Alex, which was good to see, 49 and 90. Jake Fraser, though, duck and 1, not exactly backing up his exciting end to the summer with the Australian white ball stuff. Marnus 38 and 45 in his first match. He's still looking for that form, but good win for Queensland in Hobart. Caleb Jewell, a monster 227 all-rounder. Bo Webster, who's had great 24 months. Big Bo, 100. That match, as we sit here right now, still going. Aaron Hardy, though, as we mentioned earlier, Ben picked up a calf injury, so he couldn't bowl, which is a bit of a shame for Aaron. They got the Marsh Cup final this weekend in Sydney against New South Wales. Yeah,
it's a real shame. I think Aaron Hardy's had a great summer, and I think he's the person to watch in all 3 formats for Australia as next man on the scene. But that would have been a great opportunity for him in New Zealand in the T20s, because with Stoinis out, genuine opportunity. But be interesting one-day cup final. It's a shame it's not at the SCG or at least North Sydney Oval.
What's that? They've lost it for footy, have they?
Yeah, they can't play at the
SCG.
SCG, and I think Cricket Australia's chosen Cricket Central over, which is New South Wales training base out at Silverwater. Yep. They've chosen that over North Sydney Oval, which surprises me. But
it surprised me. You won't be able to get a crowd in there.
Yeah.
The other thing was interesting now, the Shield games. Yeah, you spoke about Marnus 38 and 45. It was his first time with leadership.
Yeah.
They were behind the game a bit. He had to rally his troops. But we spoke earlier about Mitch Marsh having opportunities. I like that they're giving Marnus an opportunity now. Paddy's openly said he's not going to captain for the rest of his career. And you need guys like Marnus when opportunities do arise. And this is a perfect opportunity. Give them a taste of captaincy. So I like what Queensland did there.
Yeah.
In the Women's National League as well, as a final this weekend. On Saturday at Blundstone in Hobart, Tassie will play Queensland. Jess Jonathan, she vented her frustration being left out of the test team on WA. She took 4 for 6 from 5 overs and 29 not out. Thanks very much. Get that up your selectors, says Jess. But it's hard to break into that side at the moment, given what they did against South Africa. That's us for Willow Talk for this edition. Ben Horne, thank you very much. Look forward to reading your stuff. Got any exposés planned this week or anything?
Not yet.
Not yet. What about a headline, Brad Haddin compliments England? Full stop. Twice. Full stop.
It's certainly a shock headline.
I tell you what the headline will be is I've got to go spend 3 hours on the couch now talking about that. I actually can't believe that came out of my mouth.
Have a good one, everyone. I'll catch you later in the week for more Willow Talk. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.